evening, I'm Joel Flynn in Hong Kong. Welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Occupy protesters, including Joshua Wong, in court again to hear their sentencing after being found guilty of contempt of court. Donald Trump faces an intense backlash from the Arab world and his Western allies after recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And same-sex marriage is to become legal in Australia after an historic bill was passed in Parliament. Good evening. The sentence hearing for Occupy protesters who've been found guilty of contempt of court has been adjourned. Joshua Wong and Lester Shum are among the 16 convicted of contempt of court for obstructing a court-ordered clearance of a key demonstration site in Mongkok during the 79-day pro-democracy movement of 2014. Prison sentences are expected. Speaking to the press before the hearing today, the protesters said they are ready for any punishments handed down to them.
What I expect from myself or my friends to face this tough challenge is that we could become a better person from the challenges given by the Hong Kong administration and the Beijing government. If we are aware that we will be facing tougher and tougher challenges from the Beijing authority towards the Hong Kong democratic movement.
A foreign domestic helper has been charged with distributing child pornography after she allegedly live-streamed 3 children bathing on social media. The 28-year-old appeared at Eastern Magistracy this morning. Prosecutors accuse her of using her mobile phone to distribute child pornography on social media. The defendant has been released on bail until a hearing next month. The Legislative Council debate on procedural changes has finally begun. President Andrew Leung says he's standing firm on his decision to combine the discussion and voting of all 48 proposals and related amendments. This instead of debating each proposal separately. Leung is also limiting the speaking time for each lawmaker. The Democrats, who vowed to do everything in their power to stop the proposal from getting the green light, have complained that the time limit would lower the council's credibility. The controversial proposal is seen as a way to stop pan-Democrats from filibustering, but the opposition lawmakers said it would just pave the way for the enactment of controversial laws such as the anti-treason Article 23. Some more bad news for Cathay Pacific staff. The loss-making airline announced it's slashing bonuses for staff this year. It will, though, offer ex gratia payments to lower-ranking staff. On top of this, employees will only receive a 1% pay rise. In making the announcement, Cathay explained the company is still facing business and commercial challenges. Staff unions say they'll have to accept the deal as the company is currently undergoing restructuring. United States President Donald Trump is facing intense backlash from the Arab world and Western allies after he officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas said the decision was an abdication of Washington's role as a peace mediator in the Middle East. The Palestinian militant group Hamas has just called for a new intifada or uprising 12 years after the last one cost thousands of lives. The status of Jerusalem, which is home to sites considered holy to the Muslim, Jewish and Christian religions, is one of the biggest obstacles to reaching a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. Arabs and Muslims across the Middle East condemned the move, while major allies in the region and in Europe said it was a major setback for peace efforts between Israel and the Palestinians. The United Nations, meanwhile, accused Trump of aggravating the potential for conflict in a political tinderbox.
I have consistently spoken out against any unilateral measures that would jeopardize the prospect of peace for Israelis and Palestinians. In this moment of great anxiety, I want to make it clear there is no alternative to the two-state solution. There is no plan B. I will do everything in my power to support the Israeli and Palestinian leaders to return to meaningful negotiations and
Well, it was an historic day in Australia today. The country has approved same-sex marriage. Songs and cheers filled a packed parliament after it became the 26th nation to grant LGBT people the right to marry. The law will come into effect on Saturday, but the first unions will take place in January. The bill survived pushback from Conservatives in government, but that didn't stop many Aussies from celebrating including Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, who called it a day for love, equality and for respect.
What a day for love, for equality, for respect. Australia has done it. Every Australian had their say and they said it's fair, get on with it. And the Parliament has got on with it, and we have voted today for equality, for love. It's time for more marriages, more commitment, more love, more respect. And we respect every Australian who has voted, those who voted yes and those who voted no. This belongs to us all. This is Australia, fair, diverse, loving and filled with respect.
Elsewhere, Chinese state media claims an Indian drone invaded the country's airspace. According to a government spokesperson, the incident took place in recent days. China has condemned the alleged breach. Relations between the two nations soured after India opposed the extension of a road along the Doklam Plateau next to the border with China. India has yet to respond to any of these claims. All right, coming up next, the latest from the world of business.
Well, after that massive slide yesterday, Hong Kong markets rebounded a little after a choppy trading day. The Hang Seng Index edged just over 0.25% higher today, closing at 28,303 points. Tech stocks led the gains, with Tencent staging a strong comeback, climbing almost 3.3%. AAC Technologies also did well, closing the day up almost 3%. Well, financial advisor Convoy Global Holdings was suspended from trading today. It comes as local media reports say the ICAC has detained Group Vice Chair and Executive Director Rosetta Fong. Sources say anti-graft agents took her from her home before going to her Convoy office for a search operation. The company has refused to comment on the reports. Well, Bitcoin mining marketplace NiceHash said it has lost almost $64 million worth of the digital currency in a security breach. The Slovenia-based company called the hack, quote, a highly professional attack with sophisticated social engineering. It said about 4,700 Bitcoin was stolen. NiceHash is advising users to change their passwords and said it's still trying to figure out what happened. Well, this comes as Bitcoin just extended its eye-popping rally to break above $14,000 earlier in the day, yet another record high. But as Rosanna Philpott reports, there are growing concerns over the cryptocurrency's bubble risk.
I think it's fair to say that Bitcoin's price increase this year has exceeded what most people, even the most bullish people on Bitcoin, expected.
As Reuters' Jemima Kelly explains, the ascent has been meteoric. The cryptocurrency has increased in price about 13 times since the beginning of the year and tripled this quarter alone. The most recent boost coming after an announcement last week.
CBOE, which is the biggest US options exchange, is launching Bitcoin futures on Sunday. And that makes people think that a huge number of new investors are going to enter the market and that it's going to become more of a mainstream investment.
Sunday's launch will make it easier to trade the cryptocurrency, opening the door to better regulation, but also more mainstream adoption. The fear is Bitcoin is in bubble territory, but it's not easy to know if or when that could burst.
I think the worry is that it could all explode in spectacular fashion and that a lot of people could lose a lot of money, be wiped out, go bankrupt. There are also worries around some of the uses for Bitcoin. So obviously it's been linked to the dark web. People are using it to buy drugs and weapons and for other illicit transactions.
All right, let's take a look at some other business news headlines now. The International Monetary Fund is urging China to prioritize financial stability above development goals. That's as it released a report showing the pursuit of regional growth targets has led to a surge in debt. The report recognized the steps China is taking to address its debt risks, but it pointed out reining in excessive credit growth requires a de-emphasis on high GDP projections in national plans. In response, the People's Bank of China said the assessment doesn't give the whole picture, adding the country has a relatively strong ability to fend off any financial risks. According to sources, the European Investment Bank has laid out plans for a new international offshoot. It'll focus solely on non-EU projects with the hope that this could also keep some of Britain's billions in the bank after Brexit. The new plan by Europe's largest development bank will initially focus on countries fueling Europe's migrant crisis and lend out around 7 to 8 billion euros a year. While staying in Europe, new regulations tightening the definition of Swiss-made watches have kicked up some controversy in the industry. That's as some clockmakers say the nation's hallmark industry is facing existential threat from cheaper Asian brands. Here's Matt Larantonda with the story.
A Swiss watch, a thing of family heirlooms and a point of pride for the country. But the reality is that the Swiss-made label hasn't meant 100% Switzerland for a long time. Over half a timepiece's parts could come from China and still carry it. New regulations returning some purity to the industry as a number of clockmakers ticked off.
Stricter rules for the Swiss-made label came into force at the beginning of the year. And for watches, the key requirement is that 60% of the value of the watch needs to be generated in Switzerland. That is up from 50% previously, which only applied to the watch movement. That is the mechanism inside the watch that makes it tick. So for the cheaper watches, the situation is particularly difficult because there's a lot of competition in that price segment from foreign brands, also from smartwatches. The margins are lower, so these brands, there's for example Victorinox, they are under a lot of price pressure and they can't raise their prices very easily.
This all means that some brands may need to lower their quality to keep the label or go for cheaper Asian parts to change the percentage of value. For higher-end companies like Rolex and Breitling, it's not as big a problem because they already have large profit margins. But the industry is in a downturn. Switzerland exported 10% fewer watches last year, so they're still concerned.
Suppliers have told me that they have customers coming to them saying, can't you make more in China? Then in that way you could be cheaper, and we would really like that. And then some suppliers go along with that. Some others maybe refuse, because they're concerned about their reputation.
One parts maker, Metallum, told us that losing that pedigree would mean a slow death for the Swiss tradition.
Well, I'm certainly not contributing. I'm not even wearing a watch.
Why not?
Because mine stopped and I didn't get it fixed.
You didn't get it fixed, okay. You don't know what time it is.
Yes.
All right, we'll leave it there because time is ticking. Time for a break, but when we return, the Star Wars franchise could be heading for a major makeover as plans to introduce a new arc get the green light. Don't go away.